Hello, everybody. How you doing out there? We're here today talking about the staircase. In particular, I mean, I've done a couple staircase videos already, but in particular, today we're talking about the owl theory. Now, I'm not here telling you guys that the owl theory is it. This is what you better believe. All I'm here doing is going over some of the aspects of it that would potentially explain some of my issues with this crime and the scene and the nature of the injuries to Kathleen. So we're going to go over some things here today. We've got some pictures and some things that we can all look at and kind of potentially help us form our opinion. I'm here today with the Mad Scotsman, Mr. Capaldi. Say hello, Paul.
Hi there. How you doing?
As some of you know, Paul was recently in Amsterdam and got to see Jerry and David Rudolph in Amsterdam and got to see him speak. For those of you who are wondering about opening song, I figured because it's the staircase, I'll play Stacy at the end. I'll play 3 or 4 songs of Stacy's at the end. So, Paul was in Amsterdam. He got to hear David Rudolph talk about the owl theory a bit. So that's one reason why I had Paul here on the video with us to talk, because he can actually tell us some of the things that he heard David Rudolph express about the owl theory. And like I said, we're going to go over some photos and some things that I noticed about the wounds. I'll put it this way. I have trouble with the logistics of the owl theory, just like some people I've already been seeing you point out in chat. There's some logistical issues and I understand those logistical issues. The thing is about the owl theory is that it for me takes away one issue I have with the injuries to Kathleen is that they are not severe enough. I mean, the flesh looks torn, but I would think from being beaten that badly to be able to cause that kind of damage to the skin, that type of beating would do a lot more damage to the skull and cause skull fractures, which there weren't, and brain hemorrhaging, which there wasn't. So there's all I can say is I'm not saying the owl theory is it, folks. I'm just saying I'm going over some of the things here today that I just want to put up for consideration and explain why in certain ways I think it's a good fit. In certain other ways, I understand how some people complain about the logistical issues of it and how could it have happened. You have any thoughts about it, Paul, real quick before we get in?
Yeah, lots of thoughts. I must admit, when you mentioned the first time you mentioned the owl theory to me, I'm like, what on earth are you on about? I mean, I thought that was like even more far fetched than you telling me that Crunch is British. And I'm like, what on earth is that dude on about? But in fairness, yes, I went to Amsterdam. It was absolutely brilliant, and big thank you to Georgina. She suggested the hotel that we stay at, and it was literally within crawling distance of the theatre and back again. I mean, I made notes and I remember one of the things.
Yeah, he says crawling. He says crawling, folks, because he hit 5 pubs on the way each time to and back to the theater and back to the hotel.
I've got a note here to say that at 1:40 p.m. still drinking, and it was the Belgian beer Duval, because the bar was like open 24 hours. You could have a drink anytime you liked.
It's a wonderful place, Amsterdam, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yes. A bit wet. It rained a bit, and the other thing is you've got every pub you go into. There's always pictures of Johan Cruyff.
Johan Cruyff.
You know who he is, yeah.
Yes, Georgina Stulenbos has. I know there's a piece of art that's supposed to go with that Belgian flag alongside of it.
Yep.
That I got to get made up, but it was designed by Georgina and her husband. It's nice. I've shown it on here before. Maybe I'll show it again before the end of this video. But since this is about the staircase,
yep.
Obviously we want to focus on the owl theory. So
no, the other interesting thing was the fact that having seen Dean and Jerry in Edinburgh nearly a year ago, it would have been about in fact, nearly 2 years ago. Sorry, it was February 2017. I went to the Usher Hall in Edinburgh and saw Dean and Jerry. And then I noticed that David Rudolph was coming to Edinburgh and Glasgow. So I said to my wife Eunice, do you fancy going to Edinburgh to see David Rudolph? Do you fancy going to Glasgow to see David Rudolph? Do you fancy going to Amsterdam to see David Rudolph and Jerry Buting? And she just said, we're going, and that was it.
Oh, so Amsterdam was the one that sold her.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
What kind of ice cream did she get?
We didn't get any ice cream. They even have cannabis energy drink.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have cannabis everything there because it's legal, and you can just go right into a shop and get a pot salad or whatever, right? I'll have mine with blue cheese dressing, right?
Yeah. And every so often you'd go past this place and there was a strange smell coming out of it, and there were people inside smoking, but they weren't smoking normal cigarettes.
Right.
They were smoking what I could best describe as a white carrot.
Cheeto?
It looked like a carrot that they were smoking.
A white Cheeto?
But no, it's a great place, and
it's from what I hear, it is.
Yeah. Apart from the fact that the moment I landed in Schiphol Airport, O2 crashed. I'm with O2 on my mobile network. So the guy that's picking us up from the airport to do the transfer into Amsterdam, which is about sort of 40 minutes away from the airport, he was trying to text me, but I wasn't getting any of his messages. Right. 40 minutes later, I sort of gave up on the idea, and we just went outside, and there was a guy there who's just really cool guy. He just said, where are you going? And he brought up on his phone, and he said, take a photograph of that, take a photograph of that. And he showed us exactly which bus to get on that took us within like a few hundred yards of the hotel, get off at that bus stop, and then walk around here. And it was brilliant, So, I mean, we were panicking, because it was going to be like a fortune to get a taxi.
Oh, right.
The hotel was going to send us a taxi. Well, I'm Scottish,
Yeah. Let's see. Denise Rainey says everyone has their own beliefs about guilty versus not guilty. We can all debate as long as we refrain from personal attacks and inappropriate comments. Thanks, folks. That's true. That's true, folks. So, I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah. The owl theory.
To move into, what?
Yeah. The owl theory, of course, was we hear about it at the very end of the staircase, don't we?
Kind of.
Because it was presented by apparently a next door neighbor. Next door neighbor. These are houses detached like mansions, aren't they? So the next door neighbor, wasn't sort of, like a normal next door neighbor. It wasn't like, my next door neighbor lives next door. I can hear them get up in the morning, sort of thing. This big house that he lives in, isn't it? Big mansion. But somebody that lived nearby, called Larry Pollard, was the fellow that said, you do realize that there's some aggressive. Now, I thought he said barn owls, and I'm familiar with barn owls, BARN.
I thought he said barn as well, but
no, it's barred owls, spelled BARRED. I'd never heard of them before.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, I went there with a sort of an open mind, because as you pointed out, you've sort of erred more on the side of you think that Mike Peterson could be guilty, particularly if it was because he killed her because she found out about his extramarital affairs. Yeah, and I must admit, I found him quite credible.
Really?
I quite like the fellow. I thought he was.
I found his demeanor just made me more in question. Really, I didn't. Yeah. It didn't convince me either way. It just kind of struck me as odd.
Yep. And I felt sorry for him when he had that. What was that huge weight he had on his leg, and he was having to carry that around? What was all that about?
That's pretty wild. That's one thing that I can say in this is kind of strange. It shows the way that the prosecution and the states think about these sort of things. His conviction had been vacated. It was up to them to retry him. And they were dragging their feet. I mean, he ended up having that anklet on for longer than anybody in like Durham's history with that office that monitors the recording of, like, inmates and stuff like that or whatever, this ankle monitoring place. It was like 2.5 years, I think it was, when they finally took it off. And that was like the longest that anybody had ever had it on. The girl was testifying in court. She's like, I can't think of any other time ever where somebody's had to wear an ankle bracelet that long. So that was, to me, that's interesting, where it shows how the states are reluctant when they know that their case is wobbly. When they know that the case isn't solid, they're reluctant. They don't want to admit fault, but they don't want to go back to retrying it, because they realize, just like the defendant realizes, if it goes back to trial, they could lose. And then it becomes much more embarrassing. Or they could try to just leave the status quo as it is at the moment, where they don't have to admit fault. Michael Peterson gets to say they did something wrong and everybody's happy, kind of thing, right? And they may have been happy to let that go forever, probably, until Michael wanted it to go away, and he was the one pushing for the Alford plea. The judge said he wasn't going to allow the what was it, the exhumation of Elizabeth Ratcliffe.
Yeah. Yes.
He wasn't going to allow like that stuff in. He wasn't going to allow in or he most likely wasn't going to allow in the stuff about Michael's extramarital affairs, because he felt it was too prejudicial. So once the judge expressed those thoughts, the prosecution was like, okay, Alford plea. Yeah, let's just cover our butt so we don't have to pay this guy. That's essentially what that came down to. So I just thought that was interesting about it. But anyways, to get to the owl theory, like I say, the one issue I have is with this case, and why I have reasonable doubt when it comes to Michael Peterson. And I have reasonable doubt. If I was a juror in the Michael Peterson case, I would not be able to vote guilty. I'm not saying he's innocent. I am not saying he's innocent. I want to just pound that home for the people that are going to miss that, even though I just said it. I'm going to say it for a third time right now. I am not saying Michael Peterson is innocent. I am saying I have reasonable doubt. There's a subtle difference to that, but it's, to me, a huge difference. So I would have had reasonable doubt. And here's why. The prosecution tells me that these injuries were sustained with a blow poke or something else that was being used to vigorously, hit her on the head so badly that it was opening up these huge gashes on her head. And yet, and at that point, when it's opening up those huge gashes like that whatever is being used to hit her is striking bone. If that is what caused the gashes, it would have been striking bone. Why is there no skull fractures? Why is there no brain hemorrhaging? This is the huge problem for me with this case. Why I'm going, I can't sign off on that. That doesn't work. If that's how she sustained these injuries, then there would be proof of the blunt force trauma, not just lacerations or cuts or tears in the skin. And that's my big problem with it. I acknowledge that Michael Peterson has motive. If Kathleen didn't know about his extramarital stuff, if she didn't know, he has motive. And her finding out about it and maybe scaring the hell out of him could have possibly motivated him to do something stupid in the heat of passion and fear, and because he's been hiding that deep dark secret for so long, and all those things, I could see where that might have caused him to commit this crime. But I also have to acknowledge, I don't know whether or not Kathleen knew. I don't know.
Yeah, just going back on what you were saying about the fact that, as we know, in the end, Mike Peterson took the Alford plea, and that obviously has been of interest to Making a Murderer followers, because there has been, discussions amongst supporters about, should Brendan take an Alford plea if it was offered? Should Steve take an Alford plea? So that in itself was interesting. But what I didn't like was the way that the Kathleen's sister, Candice, was basically wanting to run the show. And she was wanting to run the show based on the fact that she had this huge hatred, not only for Mike Peterson, but also for David Rudolph. And I think, that's something that you would never see, certainly in a British court. You would never see, the sister of the deceased. I mean, some of the language she was using, okay, she was repeating things, but to repeat them in a court of law, it was just it was pretty shocking. And I actually have written down the fact that for me, David Rudolph hits the nail on the head, when he says about the fact that in Scotland we have guilty and not proven, and that was a huge problem for Jim Harding, and I'll rewind. I think I've mentioned before that we got to I printed off some questionnaires that you were able to present to the people hosting the show, and I actually met Jerry as he got out of the taxi, and he saw me with my 2 pieces of paper, and he said, "Oh, are those questions?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh," he says, "just hand them to me." Well, the first question they answered was quite an interesting one. It was, so what possessed you to become defence attorneys? And that was interesting because, and I've made a note of what they said here, that it was Jerry Butin that pointed out that for defence attorneys, it's a well-known fact that the stress of the job leads to severe alcohol abuse and eventually suicide. So, in other words, they were saying, one of the worst jobs you can have is being a defence attorney.
Right.
But then the second question was the one that I put to them, read out, which was, of the 2 prosecutors, Ken Kratz and Jim Harding, which is the most unethical? And David Rudolph went first and said, "Look, for me, Jim Harding, the exhumation of Elizabeth Ratcliffe's body, which was agreed by that judge, Orlando Hudson." And that was another thing that really annoyed me in the staircase. I mean, I actually sent you that message, didn't I, about the fact that, this judge is trying to claim that, the legal system works because eventually Michael Peterson was let out. And if I'd have done the case again, I would have done it differently. But we're nearly 20 years down the line, and he's trying to claim that the system works.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. And as for that, Dwayne Deaver. Anyway,
it doesn't work.
I
don't think the way they exhumed it, and okay, here's my thing. I'm like, okay, if they exhumed it, but I don't know why it had to be driven all the way back to Durham. I would have preferred it been done in, what was it, El Paso or wherever it was. I would have preferred that the medical examiner right there in that jurisdiction where she was exhumed would have done it, because then I would have felt that person was objective, or at least more objective than Durham is, because that's my other problem with this case is Durham did not seem objective. And because that lack of objectivity in the prosecutor's office and in the Durham Police Department there is another reason why I have problems with this case and why I have reasonable doubt. It's never good for the prosecution to look shady to me, because once I'm with you as the prosecution, so long as you look like you're going by the book. As soon as I see you look like you're doing stupid crap and shady crap, then you lose the benefit of the doubt with me, and you're back to 50-50.
I mean, for me, one of the things that caused me to shout at the TV was the fact that it was so insulting to the Germans to suggest that they originally, said, she died of this hemorrhage, this brain hemorrhage. She fell down the stairs, but it was the brain hemorrhage. And the fact that they're questioning these, okay, we went to war with the Germans 60 years ago, but I'll tell you what, they are very, very efficient. They are, they are very, very good over there, and this insinuation that these people in Germany could have got it wrong.
The jury,
it's very, very insulting. Anyway, getting back to, I believe you have some photographs of.
Well, yeah, to just sort of illustrate it a little bit more.
Because to put the things in a list, the first thing I'd forgotten was that there was actually blood, on the outside doorway or the door frame, and I'd forgotten about that. So how did some of Catherine's blood end up? Sorry, Kathleen's blood end up in the doorway. Anyway, that's a photograph of, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that a feather?
So this photograph right here is of a owl feather, a little microscopic one that comes off of it comes off of the top side of their talons, basically, and they're really, really tiny microscopic type feathers here, and this is one of them right here, and this is a strand of Kathleen's hair here, obviously. And so that's what these things are. They're tiny, tiny little hairs, but they're all wrapped up in strands of Kathleen's hair. And if you look at the next one, here they are, and they even have little drops of blood in them.
Yep.
So, that's another thing that gets you thinking. It makes you wonder how, number one, why would these microscopic owl's feathers be in her hair? Why would there be seemingly so many of them? Yeah. Here, let's blow this up a little bit.
Yeah, as well as the blood on the outside doorway, there was also a blood smear on the outside door frame.
Yeah, I don't have any pictures of the outside door frame,
but also it wasn't just a feather in her or feathers. It was the fact that there was also some twigs or a twig.
Yeah, I think there was some little kind of other various debris. Yeah, I think.
But most significant, the fact that some of her hair had actually been pulled out from the root.
What happened here? Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yep.
Yes, there was a couple of her hairs that have been pulled out from the root. So anyways, what I was looking at here is another reason why it's so strange, and why this owl theory is just, even though I don't get behind it and say it's 100% the way, I am still looking at it because I look at things like this. And this, I mean, you see this one wound that looks just so much like the type, the tri-point kind of wound you would see from a talon or an eagle or an owl, whatever. They're both tremendously strong birds that grip their prey with their talons. And I mean, they're sharp. And so I can imagine are able to do quite a bit of damage. In fact, when I was looking today, I didn't get any of the pictures of the people that had been attacked by owls or barred owls, but
yeah,
I found probably 5 or 6 different ones, and they go for the head.
Yes,
they go for the head, the eyes actually too, very much.
Yes,
they try to go for the eyes.
Yeah,
they're very much.
And she did have some.
She had some things like
actually on her face as well.
Exactly. That was the other thing I was noticing, that she had those slight little things above her eyes where it looked like 3 little holes, like possibly it might have tried to like gouge in, but like hit, and the nails started to go in, but then maybe she hit it and it flew out, and or something like that. Like if she had some kind of altercation, it's not saying it's 100%, folks. I'm just theorizing and going through the kind of motions on this theory, because like I say, there's just a few things about it that just keep me thinking about it and going, it would explain away certain other problems that I have with this, but it creates also other problems in the process. But
well, yeah, the thing is that, as I say, when I went to Amsterdam and you mentioned about the owl theory, and I'm thinking, oh, this is nonsense. And as you pointed out, you said, well, hold on a sec, Paul. You know, this owl theory could further, help the idea that Mike Peterson is innocent. And of course, what it does do is it creates even more doubt, doesn't it? It creates so much doubt about this that you wonder how was it that Mike Peterson was found guilty in the first place. And we hear David Rudolph was really upset by this. Years and years of being this defense attorney, and then to have that one go against him, and it completely destroyed his faith in the legal system. Of course, what it was the way that they had sort of attacked Mike Peterson's character, and there's so many parallels with Stephen Avery there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean that what else have I written down here? But that was I meant to point out. I apologise for the dog barking upstairs. The daughter's arrived with her bloody border collie.
Yeah,
anyway, yes, what I was going to point out was that it was Jim Harding, and can you remember the name of the other female prosecutor was Frida Black?
Yeah, Frida Black.
Yeah. Do you know what happened to her? I didn't realize this. She
I remember she got disgraced because I think, drank a little too heavily.
Yes, yeah. And she was alcoholic. She got disbarred. She ended up working at a dry cleaners, and then I think died of alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
But she just came across as a very, very nasty person, and to the extent where it was so vile, the stuff that she was, trying to, just trying to really, lay into the sort of, because Mike Peterson was having these extramarital affairs, or with the one guy, of course, he didn't end up having the affair with him after all, did he? That all fell through, but it was pretty bad, and that's one of the things that the judge did say, that what was it, 15, 20 years down the line, he would have done it differently. Well, gee, man, that's really big of you. Thank you, judge. You've just wasted that guy's 15 years of his life. Why didn't you do that at the time? Because the hype was so much, and also because when you've got this severe adversarial system whereby somebody's trying to say that they're guilty, the other person is trying to say they're innocent because there's none of this not proven. It's and another thing that I've noticed is we want to see a winner and a loser. We can't have an outright winner, or it was in effect a draw. We don't like the idea of, well, let's call it a draw because that there wasn't an outright winner in this, and the stakes were so high in that case.
Yeah,
they just didn't, and I can understand this, being a very much a pro law and order. I would hate it if somebody like Mike Peterson was guilty and he got off with it because he was just too clever for them. That he was able to pull the wool over their eyes and convince a jury that he was innocent when he wasn't, because that's
I don't know. You basically look. You have to basically recognize it for what it is that Durham County, they decided what they're going to do right away, because they found the blowpruck right away. They pulled it out onto the front lawn, took pictures of it, and put it right back where they found it. And then went on to claim all the way till trial or whatever that it was lost. It was mysteriously missing and all these things. And they knew exactly where it was. That tells you, that makes them, they were knowingly involved in deceiving the courts, the jury, the media, everybody, because they knew exactly where it was, because eventually David Rudolph did find out and did see the reports and the pictures where they had found that thing right where his son had found it in front of Kathleen's car. And they had found it, brought it out onto the front lawn, took pictures of it and all that. But none of that was ever handed over in discovery. So when you see things like that, it makes Durham look bad. It's unfortunately something that takes away from their credibility. But to go on to one other thing that I had here about the owl theory, because that wasn't my last picture, is look at these guys. You can see this guy right here. He looks pretty formidable. You look at these talons. Imagine those suckers coming down from above at a high rate of speed. They're, I would say, formidable, to say the least. And then I just want to show you one other thing of how bold these little guys are. They are pretty darn bold, because this is actually caught on a nature camera where one of these little guys is coming after a deer. And look at where it's going for. It's going for the head. So that's, I mean, these guys are these little scrappers. They remind me of a honey badger, kind of.
Yeah,
dude, I love the honey badger. But I mean, look at that guy. He's going in, man. He's like going in. He's ready to maul this sucker. Like, get away from my territory, fool. You know.
Yeah.
But,
So absolutely.
Yeah. So these guys are pretty bold. They're not afraid when they're well, at least when they feel the need to protect. They don't seem to have much fear.
Absolutely, it's as you say, it's as I said to you earlier, what if she was attacked by the owls, and in trying to escape from one, that's when she fell and did her head again.
Yeah. I agree, Johnny. I think those owl feathers being there are or Ripper, that those owl feathers being there are significant and everything. Sorry, that was from the chat, Paul.
Mm-hmm. yeah, it's
yeah. Ali said that deer didn't even know.
Yeah.
See, didn't the police say it wasn't relevant because it didn't have blood on it, the blow poke? I know, but see, in their investigation they found it. Then they went on to say that it was the blow poke because it was mysteriously missing, but it wasn't mysteriously missing. It was just down in the garage in front of Kathleen's car. I don't think anybody but maybe Kathleen ever used that blow poke, to be perfectly honest. But the fact is, the police knew it was there, and they went on to claim that Scott and them had lost it when they just didn't realize it was down in that garage that none of them wanted to go down into. I imagine it was maybe kind of like, because it was where Kathleen's car was, it was where she parked, and there may have been like a little thing where they didn't really want to go down there. And maybe one day when that kid went down there, his son went down there, he saw that blow poke sitting over there going, oh my God. But we know that the investigators found it originally, early on, and they misrepresented and said, oh yeah, now it's mysteriously missing. No, you know exactly where it's at. Had you handed that over in discovery, the defense would know exactly where it was at. Instead, because they didn't hand that over, the defense finds it literally during the closing arguments, and the state's wanting to use that against the defense. I mean, it's like that lie is just the gift that kept on giving for Durham, where it allowed them to, it was just, I don't know, it kind of pissed me off. But anyway.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that Ludo did point out was the fact that, and you mentioned this quite early on, was the fact that Mike Peterson had a huge difficulty in showing emotion. But not only that, but David Rudolph was saying that he felt that he, over the course of time, he started to relax a bit more, and apparently he came across as being a bit of a warmer person. But the way that it was presented, that the finding of the blow poke and then bringing it in and then trying to almost to humiliate people over it, that doesn't endear them, does it? The idea that you're going to try and humiliate people, and then therefore stuff like that Dwayne Diva stuff, that was appalling.
Yeah,
but it could be, but as bad as Dwayne Diva was, the fact remains that Mike Peterson could be guilty of it. So therefore, do we want to chuck out find the guy not guilty just because of the fact that Dwayne Deaver was such a clown in all of this? It's very difficult.
Well, it's not just Dwayne
situation.
Deaver. Yeah. My point is, it's not just Dwayne Deaver. Harden had to be involved in that decision to suppress that evidence and not hand it over about the blowpoke being in the garage.
Yep.
I mean, the DA had to have some involvement in that decision. I can't. There's no way I can really try to say that Harden wasn't involved, because he had to be for that, my opinion. But yeah.
Anyway, it was. I did chat with David Rudolph afterwards. It was quite interesting. Jerry spent between 20 and 30 minutes signing books, and I mean he sold a lot of books. I got the impression that everybody that was there, that was certainly Dutch, had not yet read the book and bought a copy of the book, because I mean the queue went all the way around the sort of central sort of bar area.
Right.
Jerry was there a good 20 minutes and 30 minutes, and for the last 10 minutes David Rudolph came out. I had a chat with him, and I thought, yeah, he's noticed the fact that it would be a very good idea to get a book out, because Jerry was kept very busy, and both really nice people to chat with, as was the Dutch prosecutor that actually hosted the actual the event. It was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed going there, and I would definitely recommend, if you get the chance to, if David Rudolph and Jerry Butin, you get the chance to see the pair of them, then by all means go, because obviously they know each other, don't they, from way back. It's mentioned in Jerry's book that he went to like a law school in Carolina, where David Rudolph was one of the lecturers.
Yeah, cool.
You remember that?
Yeah. So, love for my Ozzy Blanton. You ask if this is the Grinch on my tie. No, this tie is a symbol of international support. But if you look closer, that is actually the Pink Panther. This was sent to me by the Mad Scotsman, who you're looking at today. Sent to me all the way from Scotland. And so that's the Pink Panther on there. Just to answer that question, I love to show off the symbols of international support. So,
and why did I send you that tie? So that it doubled your tie collection.
Oh yeah. No, I have other ties, but I gotta go get them out of storage. I do. I have them. I don't like wearing them, but I have them. Yeah. They're in storage, and I don't go to storage very often.
I've got a couple of. Sorry, I know we're not meant to move off subject, but I do have one question for you, and that is, who's your tip this year for the Super Bowl?
Oh crud! I don't know. The Rams look pretty strong.
Because I mean, I put a $5 last year on Philadelphia Eagles, and I ended up winning.
Yeah.
Yes. Now here's another interesting thing, right? As pointed out, in fact, in John Ferak's book, who was the team that they beat? It was Tom Brady's team, right?
Oh, was it? Oh, the
in the final.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Patriots, yeah.
Am I right? Yeah.
I
mean, you're the American football expert. You tell
me.
Hey,
dude, I'm on the expert now.
It sounds like I'm telling you.
I'm the expert now. Dude, I've been telling you, dude, I've been losing touch with football since I've become an advocate for Brendan and Stephen. So,
well, you and Captain Crunch are American. You know more about American football than I do.
Yeah. So, the Patriots were a good bet, but that particular Sunday, the Eagles came up on top. What do you want to say?
Yeah. Well, the point is that in John Ferak's book, he points out the fact, isn't this interesting that, did Tom Brady get hoisted up and paraded around the pitch? No, it was the guy that nobody had ever heard of that played for the Philadelphia Eagles. What was the name of that quarterback? I can't remember. Can you remember the name of the quarterback?
No.
Nope. As John Ferak mentions, isn't it interesting? Dean and Jerry, did they win in Making a Murderer?
No.
No, did David Rudolph win?
No.
No.
But we
So
remember Harden
why
and Kratz's names.
so why is it that we're so why do we have so much, for want of a better word, love and affection for these guys that actually lost?
Right, I see what you mean.
It's a strange thing, isn't it? You know. Well, it's it's something to do with the fact that
Travis remembers the
they are.
quarterback.
Go on then. Who was it?
See if he comes up. Come on, Travis. Who is it?
He is he actually in a team this year?
Stan, I don't think there's been a decision yet, and it's Saturday, so there won't be a decision on a weekend, just so you know. Cunningham. Randall
Right.
Cunningham.
Is that right?
No. Dude, we're talking about like last year or 2 years ago, not the 90s, brother. Randall Cunningham. Holy moly, that's a blast from the past. I forget who the Philadelphia's quarterback. It was like a year or two ago, though, right? It wasn't that long. It was last year, wasn't it?
Well, funnily enough, I was trying to have a look down of your videos to see. Well, first of all, the very first video that I ever did on the subject would have been November of last year.
Yeah.
And that was as a direct result of speaking with you, because you encouraged me to actually put a video together.
Yeah.
And I remember when I did one video, I then said that, well, I won't be doing any more. And you said, well, are you sure? I respect that, but it would be good if you would do some more, So I'm at the moment, I'm trying to do more videos and I've got subscribers, but I'm thinking that the first time we ever had a chat together would have been the 2nd of January last year. It's nearly a year since you've put up with me.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Put up with you. Hey, sometimes you make it entertaining.
Well, sometimes, yes.
Sometimes you make it painful.
Yes.
Take it good with the bad.
Yeah. So another question.
Foles, that was it. Good call, JB. Foles, yes. That was the quarterback.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
I don't know. I was going to say one more thing.
Paul, yeah, my Foo Fighters shirt. Yeah. I sent you some pictures of Sky.
Oh, yeah, but I don't have
Scotland,
those. I can't get those. I can't get those up here easily. Well, let me see. Maybe.
That's
Hold
okay.
on. Maybe I can here. Hold on.
Because I did say that part of the agreement of coming on with you is the fact that I'm allowed to drink beer and whiskey and talk about visiting Scotland. If you remember.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you said, you'll get yourself along. And certainly of all the stuff that I've posted and put out there to do with Scotland, the number one place to visit in Scotland is the Isle of Skye.
All right, so hold on.
And there's, yep. Yeah. That's absolutely stunning. You can actually, they've actually built now like a platform, almost like a promontory that you can step out on, and you're sort of looking back on the waterfall, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's several hundred feet drop into the sea,
Yeah.
Kilt rock and the falls there.
Can you just go like parachute off it with like a surfboard strapped to your feet?
Now that sounds like a good idea for Hodinut. He could do that. I mean, he loves going off the sort of barrier reef of Australia with the sharks and everything.
Yeah.
That is Ben Nevis. That is the famous Ben Nevis. That isn't actually on the Isle of Skye. It's near Fort William, which is on the way up to the Isle of Skye. That's on a really beautiful day when you can actually see the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's very, very spectacular. You go up from the Scottish borders through Edinburgh, up to Stirling, you then turn off for Callander, and then eventually you come through Glencoe. You go all the way through, Glencoe, all the way up to Fort William. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
From there, you go all the way up to the Kyle of Loch Elsh, where you get the Skye Bridge, the bridge over to Skye. But if you've got a couple more there, that's the fairy pools, as they're called. Absolutely stunning. A series of like waterfalls coming down the mountain, and that's a huge tourist attraction. The fairy pools, they're called. It's a series of interlocking like pools that are connected by these little Old Man of Stir. Yeah, that's you have to get it from the correct angle, and you can see that it's like an old man lying down and the silhouette of his face. But I wasn't able to get any pictures to show exactly why it's called the Old Man of Stir. But very, sort of beautiful rock. That's another angle of those the Old Man of Stir. Yep, that's particularly stunning. There, as I say, there's the fairy pools. You've probably got somewhere there, fairy pools. You've probably got the that's Glencoe. That's on the way, as I say, up to Fort William. Yeah, that's part of the way up there, and also, so that's also. Now, what's that one again? I think that's part of looking down on the in Skye. That is Floddigary Hotel. That's somewhere that we will go and have a couple of beers. It's a secluded hotel. It was the hotel that
the Shiny.
Well, yeah, a bit like that. But for anybody that knows Scottish music, red rum.
Come play with us.
Yes, Phil Cunningham is a very famous accordionist, even more famous than me in Scotland, and he actually had that hotel for a while. The Floddigary. There's the fairy pools again.
The fairy pools,
yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's the Kilt Falls again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's Kilt Falls. That is absolutely stunning, Neast Punt. Mm-hmm. And people climb up to the very top of that ridge to look down. You wouldn't catch me doing that. That again is something for the Aussie to do. That's he could definitely dive off there. We'll make sure there's a few sharks around for him. That is one of the cooling edge, as it's called, and people climb up on that. I mean, why would you do that? People say to these mountaineers, why do you do it? Why did you climb that mountain? Because it's there,
Oh, it's the Harry Potter train.
That's it. That's at the Glenfinnan Viaduct. And as you go to Fort William, you can either go up to the Kyle of Loch Elsh to get across to Skye, or you could go all the way along to Mallaig to get the ferry, and that's part of the steam train that takes you to Mallaig.
All right.
And so again, very, very iconic. But have you got the one of the? There was one of a fishing village with some coloured houses.
Oh, okay.
Probably the last one I sent you. Yes, in the main town on Skye is called Portree, and that's part of the harbour with those coloured houses. And you see the blue one there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the one that I like going in because it's a pub.
Ah.
And when I was in there the last time, I was actually wearing my Foo Fighters T-shirt. It was the middle of summer. I'd got my shorts on and like my sandals, and there was an accordion in the corner. And of course, a lot of people have already have realised that I don't have a Scottish accent. I can understand you know, the Scottish language. I've lived here now 35 years, so I can understand and communicate fine with the, you know, the real natives, you know. But going up to Skye, it's obvious that I'm a tourist. There's an accordion in the corner, and I said to the barmaid, I said, is that an accordion in the box there in the corner? And she said, yes. I said, could I possibly have a wee shot on it, you know, a go at playing it? She said, well, can you play it? I said, well, I'll give it a go, you know. Well, of course, I got this accordion out and started playing all these Skye tunes and the Scottish, the stuff I play in the Cayley band, and the people the people in the bar were like, it was like they'd never heard anything like, you know, they couldn't understand how somebody from out with the area knew all of their tunes, all of the famous Skye tunes and the Gaelic waltzes and the marches and the jigs and the reels. And after about an hour of playing, I mean, halfway through this one guy that was sat next to me, he got on the phone and apparently he'd phoned the guy whose accordion it was, and it said Hamish, there's this English fella here. He's playing your accordion, and this is how it should sound. and then when I went outside at the end, because sod's law, I was driving that day, so the other guys that we were with, like Eunice, my sister and her husband, they were getting drinks bought for them because I was obviously keeping the pub entertained for an hour. And then when I went outside, you know, there was a couple of guys there because you have to smoke outside. They said that was amazing, you know. They said, you do realise that the guy that was buying you the drinks, he's the owner of this hotel, you know. I said, oh well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I said, I bet when you saw me with my Foo Fighters t-shirt and, you know, obviously a tourist, when I started playing all those, you know, all the stuff that you can, you know, the local sort of Scottish stuff. I said, I bet you thought it was like a dog going meow, or a cat that was barking. Just so unusual, you know. It's just not the thing that they would have seen. But no, totally enjoyed it. If you're going to come to Scotland, then we'll take a few days off, and I'll take you up to Skye and show you some of these places, because they are absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can
we'll
wear
have
your
to
kilt.
see, dude. There's a lot of people in Scotland who are going to be wanting to drag me probably a number of places.
Well, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
we'll have to like organize a caravan of us to go.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And do a little rally.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, right? I'm not trying to be funny now, but how much longer has the Navy saga got to run? The way things are developing, some things could fall into place very, very quickly, couldn't
they? Possibly. We'll have to see what happens with the most recent motion.
Well, we've got bones that have now been confirmed as being Teresa's, not by any expert, but by the state, handing them back to the family.
Possibly. Who knows which bones of the groups they were handing over? There's a lot of minutia to go through on this.
Yeah.
But
and this battery that was in the raft, apparently it was part of a battery, a batch of batteries that was sold to a fleet of cars.
I'm sorry?
How many organizations in Manitowoc have fleets of cars?
Oh, well, I imagine you probably got like I don't know, whatever. You got various fleets, but yeah. I mean, I imagine they have like road repair, you know, maintenance, you know, with the county. I imagine there's a yard like that, but most likely I would think it's going to come back to a sheriff.
Oh, you think so? You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There's a pretty good chance, I think.
I think there's a very good chance, isn't there? Yeah. Sorry, one other thing I was going to. Yeah, basically, you know, for me, when it comes getting back to the staircase and Mike Peterson, for me, there is enough reasonable doubt in all of this to say, yeah, I think that I think that Mike Peterson should not have been found guilty. I just don't see how that happened. I can understand David Rudolph and the way he reacted to that him being found guilty. I also have a certain sympathy for Mike Peterson, and he was saying, if he's got the chance to be out, albeit on this Alford plea, it's not ideal. To me, it seems a very very strange thing. It's. So he's pled guilty to the fact that the state could have had enough evidence to find him guilty.
Yeah, sort of. He's saying he doesn't expect. He signed it very clearly with the statement of, it's because I don't feel that I will ever get a fair shake from Durham County, that I don't feel that the prosecutor's office there will ever be fair, that they have only proven themselves to use questionable evidence and dirty tactics, and he doesn't want to take a chance with his freedom in that kind of a rigged game, basically, is what he was getting at. So.
Well, also the fact that he didn't want to put his family through it again, did he? That this is the thing. It's to me, he seemed a very compassionate person. Some people think that they just look at somebody and draw up an opinion of them based on, the fact that they just don't like that person. Where have we heard that before?
Yeah, well, that's true. And like I've said, I have issues with the way Durham County brought this case. It's like Steve Moore said. He said, just because you have a bad investigation doesn't mean it got the wrong guy or person. He said, but if it did, it's mostly luck. Right?
Yes.
And that's the way I feel about Durham. And that's the way I feel about Manitowoc and Calumet and Wisconsin. Because he puts it in such a brilliant way like that. I feel the same way about both places. The same way I feel about Manitowoc and Wisconsin, the same way I feel about Durham. They just didn't do it right. They were shady. They created the situation where I have doubt for them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do get the fact that for some people, Mike Peterson and we see a little bit of his, is it the older son, trying to be cocky and show off in court, and that doesn't endear himself. And it reminded me of, I think most of us here have watched it. It was what, a year and a half ago, the confession tapes.
Yeah. Oh, right.
You remember the first case of there with the two Canadian lads that
right.
that were, well, they were found guilty, weren't they? They're still locked up, aren't they?
I don't know. I can't remember exactly about the confession tapes. I started watching it and I think I got distracted and never got back to it.
Right.
And then I started watching maybe one. I don't know. My memories of it are vague. So
yeah, but again, it was just the demeanor of the two suspects that didn't help them. They didn't help themselves by the way that they were trying to be cocky. And for me, you can understand why sometimes public opinion is this guy or these two guys, they're as shady as anything. They are trying to pull the wool over our eyes. They're trying to show off. They're in danger of getting off with it. So there's that pressure to then, let's make sure that we've got the evidence that's going to prove them guilty. And I think that's, in most cases, that's the big problem. You're really trying to bend the rules and unfortunately sometimes break the rules in order to get people so that they're guilty. For me, the thing about Steve is that it's they're framing him for a second time.
Yeah,
it's like you can understand where in other cases it was it's somewhat accidental that they've ended up convicting the wrong person, but it's the fact that in Steve Avery's it is such a deliberate. Why is Making a Murder the second biggest show on Netflix?
Yeah, it's compelling, for one.
Why are we all here? Why do we have such interest in this case?
Well,
it
offends us. Well, it offends me.
I mean, obviously, you're making a fortune out of doing your videos. Not. none of us are profiting out of doing this. So yeah, what is it that offends us so much about it?
Well, I'm outraged by Brendan.
Yep.
And the investigation for Stephen, and the fact that I see the group of liars being the law enforcement, not Stephen, because as far as I can tell, Stephen has stuck to his guns and told the same stories since 1985. And so far, with one wrongful conviction, he has been proven right. And so far, I see a bunch of liars for the state in the Teresa Halbach case. So I have no confidence in their,
You know what I mean?
I have no absolutely zero confidence in their opinions or what they've surmised. So it just leaves me with the fact that Stephen to me looks the most credible until I see something something more than this ridiculous evidence that I've seen so far. So, but anyway.
I like your high-pitched voice, and that was very appropriate, because I'm just going to come out and say, I was completely appalled when I heard you actually quote this, and it's something that I've been banging on about for ages, that as far as guilters are concerned, they actually think that, well, not in the case of me, but in the case of Americans going against Ken Kratz, that somehow that's some sort of unpatriotic.
I don't think they'd say it that way. I think they would say the state, but I think they have enough sense at this point not to question people's issues with Kratz. I think they've gotten over that. But I think they would say if you question the state, it's unpatriotic.
Okay.
Right? You see what I mean, right?
So in other words, we have to, or as Americans, you have to forgive the state for making mistakes, because otherwise it's unpatriotic.
From what I understand, that is a statement that was made. Some people may hold that opinion. I personally don't. We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so standing up and speaking out when you see something that isn't right is kind of part of living in the land of liberty and being one of the brave.
Yeah, I mean, obviously most of the world is the land of the free and the land of the brave. That fortunately, there's very few countries in the world where people are being really badly oppressed. Certainly, I don't feel that I'm particularly oppressed and unfree here in Scotland. I feel quite the opposite. I feel that there's parts of living in Scotland that are favourable to, dare I say it, not wishing to offend you, but favourable to actually living in America, where you've got a not what I would call a justice system, but a legal system that prides itself in locking up as many people as possible. I mean, that was one of the other things that was mentioned later on in the show, was the fact that you've got all these criminals in America, and often they're created. This was something that was mentioned that sometimes people will get arrested for maybe a possession of some drugs or something. They can't afford the cash bail. There's then a delay. If they don't plead guilty, then they could spend months waiting for their case. They spend months in a jail waiting for their case to be heard. They've lost the car, they've lost the job, the missus has moved out. They've lost everything, and so therefore, they might as well just plead guilty and have that, done away with. It was one of the things that was pointed out with the Dutch prosecutor, that anybody arrested in Holland, they have to have their case heard to begin with within 3 days.
Right. Well, you have to, even here in the United States, you have to see it. You have to be arraigned. You have to see a judge, or there has to be your lawyer has to appear before a judge or whatever. But within, I believe it's within 48 hours of your arrest that you have to have something like that. Doesn't mean they're going to be going all through your case and you're going to be done. It just means you got to see a judge, or your lawyer did, and that sort of thing.
Right. Okay. It was just interesting. It was something that as I say, both Jerry and David pointed out was this fact. How do we get on to talking about this system? As I say, it does. It outrages us. We are just normal people. We're just normal people having regular jobs, living regular lives. We see making a murderer. Was that all we ever did? Was that the only thing that we ever looked at and thought, hold on a sec, there's something wrong here? No. Look how much effort people have put in to try and find out more about this case.
Right. Yeah, it's great to see.
I feel sorry for the residents of Wisconsin. I'm still on very friendly terms with Charlie Berens. I still send him a lot of stuff. But I think you're right. I think you pointed out to me that he's definitely, as far as I can tell, he is an undecided.
I think he definitely is.
Manitowoc through and through. I mean, he does shows there. I mean, I'll give you a wee heads up. I've already mentioned to him, by the way, there's going to be a rally in Manitowoc. I've given him the date. Why not arrange to do one of the shows in Manitowoc the same night?
He didn't care last year.
Sorry?
I said he didn't care last year.
Yeah, no. But I mean, if he was to have one of his shows actually in Manitowoc, that
would be great.
Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah, we'll go crash it.
Yeah, absolutely. VIP seats. But no, it's and his point is the fact. He's probably a bit like this person that's been hassling you recently. This now I'm going to get the name wrong again, so correct me. Dorian
Hawkmoon.
Yes, I think that person is one of these pragmatists, a bit like Kim Ducat, that said at the end of Making a Murder #2, will Manitowoc County ever recover from this?
Yeah, if they learn to, if they just rip the Band-Aid off and let it, and let it all get aired out, and eventually, eventually it will heal. But the way it's going right now, no. The way it is right now, it's just a festering wound that just continues to get smellier and grosser and nastier with every passing day, week, month.
Okay.
In my opinion.
One other question, and I won't keep you much longer, honestly. And this is a nice, easy one.
Okay.
Why do you think that Michael Griesbach and Andy Colburn have got together and filed this civil suit 1 month after Kathleen Zellner tweeted about the fact that she would be pursuing Andy Colburn in a civil suit? Why do you think that happens?
I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to get paid off of Netflix so that they can pay Zellner.
I find that very, very interesting that Andy Colburn's civil suit comes out. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Fresh Start Monday video. Excellent. He goes through the whole of the transcript of the Sam William Henry phone call.
Right.
We're being told that there was selective editing done of that. They kind of did. They kind of splice things together in a way that wasn't. They didn't put the full thing up. You
which
know,
is a thing that happens in shows. They get, spliced a certain way to say. I don't think it was malicious. I think
and
Colburn's testimony comes off fairly much the same way either way. But
absolutely. You mean yes, there's clearly bits that they've taken out, but you're presenting something that needs to have an artistic flow to it. And the other problem is that why in the transcript does Lynn say to Andy, "Do you speak much Spanish?" And we had a conversation about this just a wee while ago,
yeah,
and it's like, well, if that was incorporated into the show, you've then got to explain all of that, haven't you? It would be as I say, I'm pretty sure that Netflix are just going to laugh at this and say, they don't have a leg to stand on. It's not as if we change one answer from a yes to a no or from a no to a yes. And, the idea that somehow they are responsible for defaming, they are responsible for Andy Colburn losing any credibility.
yeah, no.
Andy Colburn is responsible.
Like I said,
for
they're
him
like
losing
children.
credibility.
They conducted this ridiculous investigation. They created all this doubt that has now come back to bite them in the ass. Well, whatever. Sorry about that one, folks. But anyway, it's come back to bite them in the butt. And now, instead of being adults and owning it and going, you know what? Okay, look, we did screw up here. With this investigation, we should have never done these things. These things. These things were not done right. You know what? We screwed this up, but we still think we got the right guy. If they at least did that much, I mean, it's not gonna like make everything right, but I mean, if they had at least gone that far, then it would make some kind of difference of what I would think of what they have to say. But the fact of the matter is, they're acting like children. It's everybody else's fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's supporters' fault. It's it's everybody's fault but mine. That kind of attitude, and that's the way children think. And that's what bothers me about it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that there's any mileage in the fact that Andy Colburn was a member of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department? They are used to intimidating people. I'm sure you, like me, have had people private message us and say, we live in Manitowoc. We can tell you what it's like being here. You will be constantly threatened by the police, and it's almost as if they're just carry on this mentality. How dare Netflix? How dare they suggest that I'm a corrupt cop? I'm gonna do what comes naturally. Threaten them with a civil suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Hey, like I said, dude, he could be suing Netflix just so he can hopefully have the money to pay Zellner when she sues him. So that could be the whole strategy here.
Yeah, but it's an unspecified amount. I mean, he's not even putting what amount they're suing for, are they?
Right.
I mean, presumably some of our lawyer friends can tell us, exactly at what stage in all of this do they suggest an amount?
Yeah.
I mean, if Andy Colburn wants $20, I'm sure we could all have a whip round for him, couldn't we?
Yeah.
No.
For $20,
he ain't getting any of your money.
No, I don't think anybody wants to give Andy anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did say that was going to be the final question, but I've got.
Oh, what do you got, Paul?
I've got one last question. Okay.
Okay.
What do you make of these songs by Stacey Seabrook? I mean, we came across this guy. How long ago would it be now?
Well, I think I've heard "Don't Get Strange"
about a year
back in the first year, I think, or so. I don't know.
Yep. How good are his songs?
They're good. I'm not sure. I'm wondering where you make me wonder where you're going with this now.
I am sorry. Yeah, I'll just come out and say absolutely fantastic.
They're awesome. Yeah.
And even in Scotland, when you finish one of your live shows with Stacey Seabrook songs, I can actually hear all you people in America. I can hear you singing along to them.
Oh, how can you do that?
Well, because it's so obvious, you know. And what I am impressed with, actually, dude, is that your voice has improved. Your singing voice has improved tremendously since your efforts at singing "God Save the Queen."
Oh yeah,
yeah. You're actually singing in pitch, in the right time. Joking aside, when Stacey, when we first started making contact,
Stacey's killing me, man. Stacey's killing me.
Yeah, one of the things.
Hey, Stacey, when you watch this video, dude, reactivate Truth Train, dude. Come on, man. Get over that. Get over that cringing crap and reactivate the song, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Everybody tell him too. Go on Twitter and say reactivate Truth Train. Den Man Stace. That's who he is on Twitter. Actually, Den Man Stace 1. Gotta put 1.
So what we're going to do is when Steve and Brendan are out, we're going to have a big party over there in Manitowoc. Stacey's going to come along and play some of his songs on guitar. We've got Rick Marler. He's going to come along and play bass. Mm-hmm. I'm going to bring my accordion along, and you are going to do the backing vocals in harmony.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because we're that impressed with your singing voice.
Well, we'll see.
Right, I better let you go.
Yeah?
And
all right, well.
I do apologise for my dog, by the way. Not my dog, my daughter's barking.
It happens.
I didn't spoil it. And I don't know if you noticed, but Eunice opened the door a minute ago and said,
I did.
I'm off to the supermarket. You want anything? And I just gestured to the... Okay. better get the stocks in for when you arrive.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna have the good stuff.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to. It's gonna have to be cold because I don't drink at room temperature, dude.
No, I don't either. Every beer I stick in the fridge. About the only thing that I can actually put up with at room temperature. I mean, I have. If you've got a nice whiskey, don't put any.
Sometimes but
don't put anything other than maybe a cube of ice, because the whiskey is actually designed, and I've checked this with experts that have told me that the whiskey is designed so that if you got like a what do you call one of those things that you would use, like a dropper that you would use to apply to draw blood from a sink? What are they called again? The
pipette.
Pipette, yeah. If you got one of those and just a wee drop of water in with the whiskey makes all the difference.
Pour some whiskey in your water.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Happy holidays to you as well. But I love that song, by the way. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. But thank you very much, Adrian. That is very kind. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Enjoy. No, I'm just reminded about a quote about musicians. Most of us musicians, we've got our sort of song, which goes with the words of our favorite song is, you know, we started out with nothing and we still got most of it left.
All righty. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the first of 3 Stacey Seabrook songs. This one's 36 Million.
Come on, then, let's sing along.
How do you pay it?
36 million. You don't.
Just sing the parts you really know, buddy.
What you don't do,
the dead goes to your verse.
Now first, you gotta have a body
to get it.
But I know that it's naughty. At the bar that the body drove.
Park the car in the yard, throw the body in the stove.
realize I can't. You got to have a law enforcement that likes to plan. Oh, I mean, not by me. Do you pay a debt to
That
something
you don't know 36 million. You don't. It might as well be a gajillion. That goes to.
Yeah. You're gonna have to wait for the next one, buddy. I'll put on one you know next.
Ah, okay, thanks.
You're gonna have to listen to this one a few more times. And...
Now you cook that body up.
all well done for identification.
Like the tibia, he's at 23.
No, wait. Some of you ain't following me.
Bring you to what part of the scheme. You got to have the lab and forensic team. Pick one out.
I see a point back. It's been 40 years since I've been called a boy. Big murder. That goes to.
Take too long, this would end up being a
10-part docu-song.
To you, more. Do all these things and you can do your own. You first have to get a kid to confess to the story you feed him. Block all the officers from following evidence where it leads them. Tell the media things that don't make sense. Don't worry, they don't ask questions.
They just shake their heads. They just nod their heads.
You got to beware now, dogs that are mean. Lose all the cameras on, don't take a shot. Multi-label everything you gotta keep all the evidence locked up safe. If anything gets broken, fix it with scotch tape and repeat.
Yeah, it's a great song when you listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, it's funny, but it's real.
It's like it's sad. It's sad that
That's
this is all
it.
true, you know.
It's a little bit of everything mixed into one.
Yeah.
That's what Stacey does well.
Yeah.
He gets that whole kind of dichotomy.
It's strange, isn't it? Yeah, how we're enjoying ourselves and we've got two guys locked up, but I honestly think that both Steve and Brendan want us to support them by being the way we are, you know, supporting one another and
don't worry about the ethics.
doing as much, talking as much about it as we can. Anyway.
Jailed and sued from all the domestic violence victims that you abuse. How do you pay your bills for someone?
Million.
You don't.
It might as
Might
well
as well
be
be
a
a
billion.
gajillion.
Oh, this is what you did. Raped an innocent man.
You sound like me singing "God Save the Queen."
Yeah. How much is a gajillion, by the way, dude?
Just hang on.
It's a lot.
That's all you
Is
have
it?
to do. Hang on.
How well do you know Ma and Pa Avery?
Probably not as good as you do, but I've never met them. But you've met them, haven't you?
No, I meant the song though. That's what the song is.
Ah, but you've met Ma.
I got to meet Ma a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Mama and Papa Avery, I said this once for you. Just letting you know the world can see
what they've
what
done.
they have put you through. Not that we could ever fathom or try to imagine the depth of your pain. But the case was a sham, the trial was a scam. The DA is a legal stain. Mama and Papa Avery, we stand with you. no matter what the state says. Their lies we see through, because the blood, it was a planet, the car was a planet.
Henry 582.
The bones, they were planet, the bullet, yeah, planet. The key in the bedroom too. I said, Mama and Papa Avery, we send our love to you. Just letting you know, we can't see what they did and continue to do. Mama and Papa Avery said this one's for you. Just letting you know, the world can see what they have put you through.
You know what we need to do? We need to get Mark Hoddinett to do a karaoke version of this, that we can have the lyrics on the screen for us. That's going to be Mark's next task. Oh, this is the first song I ever heard. I love the slide on the dum dum dum.
I'm making Stacy learn how to play this again.
He knows how to play this.
He was a little rusty. He said he was going to have to practice a little.
Strange, no, I ain't getting strange. Strange, no, I ain't getting strange.
Can't stand the pain, don't get strange. But no, we're so red. Ripping his head, totally insane. Don't get strange. Everything they did. Questionable evidence. Man of wall. Brother in the game. Don't get strange. Sela wants you to riff with your accordion.
What?
Sela wants you to riff with your accordion.
Ah, well, yeah. I'm hopefully do that on Illusion of Justice sometime soon. Stacey did ask me about it, so I will get around to that.
You can throw away. He's a legal stain. Don't get strange.
Don't get strange. You ready? Don't get strange. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yep. Alrighty, folks. That's about it for today. Looking at some of you guys saw Ripper YouTube on here today, by the way. Him and I are going to be doing a little something, I think, on the 26th, the day after Christmas. So those of you who have been taking some interest in his videos, the Colburn call to dispatch with the person in the background saying it's here. He also had the videos where he had a llama who had died on his property and he ended up burning the carcass of it. He put the bones through 2 different burns. You guys, if you want, I'm going to make a trailer for all these videos and hopefully give you all the links where you guys can go check these out. Him and I were going to talk on the 26th about those videos of his and any other ones you guys have questions about of his. He hasn't made videos for a long time, but the ones he made back in the day were pretty cool. So those of you who have been watching him and had questions, you'll be able to have possibly the chance. He's going to do a hangout with me just like this, where you guys will have the chance to ask questions about certain aspects of those videos. I thought it'd be interesting. I know a lot of people like those videos, especially the one about the Colburn call where the car's here. that's his video. That thing's at like almost 400,000 or more views now. A lot of attention came to that video with that person in the background. So you can hopefully be looking forward to that, because him and I talked today, and that's kind of what we got planned. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. I'll create a little trailer on my channel, pulling together some of the clips from his videos for you guys to get a basic idea of what it's about. And like I said, I'll start posting some links for people to check out and go see his videos. It was a pleasure having you today, Paul. Hope to have you again one of these days in the near future.
I was just escaping then. I was just nipping to the loo. But anyway, yes,
okay.
nice chat.
We'll see you.
And I look forward to that one on Boxing Day as well. And mind to let me know who's going to win the Super Bowl, so I can put the bet.
Oh yeah, well, okay.
Time. Okay.
As soon as I get in touch with my magic genie in the bottle, dude, I'll let you know.
Cheers.
Okay, buddy.
Is that the one that lives near Narnia?
Yeah, exactly. He's the one that tossed the key out of the cabinet when Colburn was shaking it. Yes. Totally, dude. You're right on board, man. You got it. The aliens were right there. It was everything. It was. Yeah.
I'm learning from you. The dude.
Right on, buddy. Great to see you, everybody. We'll see you. You guys are all superstars too, by the way, for taking an interest. We'll see you guys.